You need hard work, resilience, mental fortitude, preparedness, ruthlessness, and those aforementioned traits are things that Lando Norris as a peddler has shown himself to be deficient of, particularly this season, courtesy of his multitudinous errors of the unforced variety, Martin.
Lando keeps saying, I don't want any help from Oscar. I don't think that's right. I wouldn't expect that. I want to win it organically and on my terms. And I'm like, hang on a minute. You've earned the right to some help. You've put yourself in a championship fighting position. Back yourself, trust yourself, walk in with your shoulders a little bit more like broader, like, no, I am the championship contender here and this is what I deserve. If it does come to an on-track battle, like we saw in Austria, I'm just sure Lando's not going to manage that situation well. And Max will outfox him in a one-on-one battle on track for sure. And if it means that both the cars have 3 wheels on it, Max is also happy with that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the F1 Hour. With me, a very special guest, the one that they call Martin from Lower Lap Time. How are you doing, sir? It doesn't matter how you're doing, sir, because there are a load of F1 threads at which we need to pull. Most recently, one Will Buxton said that Lando Norris is absolutely going to win himself a world championship. Not next year, this year, Martin, beating himself one Maximilian Verstappen, as at the 6th of the 10th 2024, the gap between Messrs Verstappen in first and Norris in second is 52 points. Are you buying or selling that, Martin? Can Lando Norris do it, chap?
Certainly a long shot, Cameron. Can I just push back on you and ask you a question? On what grounds did Will say that? Is that just because the McLaren has come good, or what's his thinking on that one? I want to hear that first before I come to this.
You know what, bro? On the Fast and the Furious podcast, this was the question, the follow-up that I was dying for the presenters to ask him, and they didn't. They just went off. The follow-up question, when he was proclaiming, not that initially he said, I think Lando could win. And then he clarified and he said, no, actually, I think Lando will win. And that delineation is really, really important, right? He's drawing through his very murky crystal ball and trying to predict the future, which is always fool's gold. And I was desperate for one of the co-hosts to say, well, double click on that, Will. How and where and why? Based upon what? And the follow-up question came. It was something like, are you surprised that it's going to be such a competitive final six? I was like, dive in on the questions. Yeah. So listen, I will talk for Will Buxton here because he didn't get the opportunity to substantiate his thesis. I think it's based upon a couple of things. I think he's invested in Lando Norris, and moreover, he's invested in the papaya-coloured car process. I think he sees that they probably have the whip and probably ostensibly the quickest car on the grid, and potentially the fact that Red Bull don't look like they're going to be able to solve for their multitudinous mechanical and technical travails between now and the end of the year. What do you think, Martin? Buying or selling?
Yeah, look, I think the probabilities have definitely swung since the last couple of races ago. So like not too long ago, we were looking at Max having this one easily. I think probabilities have definitely swung. I think more to, if I had to stick a line down the middle, I think more towards Lando's favor. The reason I say that is because, everyone says, well, if Max can keep finishing second and pick up, his second places, he's all good. But that's not going to be straightforward for Max to do. What we saw in Singapore, I just think was a massive overachievement from Max and probably didn't get enough credit. That drive to put that car where he did in qualifying, given where his teammate was, to bring home those points beautifully, even to the extent that Lando was under a bit of pressure and starting to make mistakes up front as well. He knew that Max was there. And I just think like that's not going to be easy for Max to do. I think there's going to be times when the Ferraris are strong, like we saw in Baku. It's going to be time when Mercedes are strong, like we saw in Spa. They're going to get in there. They're going to steal points away from Red Bull. I think probabilities have swung in Lando and McLaren's favor. And we've seen the McLaren just is a good car. It works in low downforce. It works in high downforce. It works in all sorts of conditions. Now, I've said all that to say this. Can Lando take the wins now? I think it's on his racket per se. Can he take the wins? Like if he can do the good jobs in qualifying, which we know he can do, and take the wins with the support of Oscar, and then you chuck in a Mercedes or you chuck in a Ferrari in front of Max. Yeah, I think it's on his racket. So slightly in Lando's favor if I had to swing the pendulum that way. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts too. What do you reckon there, Cam?
Mate, the rules of the Cameron CC channel are that as at 2024, one never backs against Maximilian Verstappen unless one
Right.
wants to lose money. Martin, again, Toto said the other day, right, that Red Bull aren't winning any more races. Max Verstappen is. He's the difference maker. I never forget on a podcast the other day, I heard that many officials, or there are at least 2 or 3 officials up and down the paddock, that think that Max is worth, as a driver, anywhere between 2 and 3 tenths over the rest of the field, including Sir Lewis Hamilton. That's how fast people think he is. I just don't think Lando, listen, he's got the car, but as far as the other things, to quote Martin of lower lap times, the gap analysis between talented driver and champion, again, to bridge that, you need hard work, resilience, mental fortitude, preparedness, ruthlessness, and those aforementioned traits are things that Lando Norris, as a peddler, has shown himself to be deficient of, particularly this season, courtesy of his multitudinous errors of the unforced variety, Martin. Like, do you know what I mean? Can't get off the line, poor start,
Yeah.
6 races back to back to back. He's put it on pole and then finished the first lap in second place or worse. Like, that can't be you if indeed you harbour aspirations of beating Max 3 soon to be 4-time champion, surely, Martin. I don't know. I don't see it, mate.
100%, Cam. I'm not sure if Lando's put together a championship worthy year, if that makes sense. I just released a video on this. We've got Monza, we've got mistakes in Singapore, we've got mistakes off the line in Spain, Hungary, Netherlands. There's a long list there on my video that I just put out. So there's that, but I think it also comes down to what are Red Bull doing in this month? I'm sure they're working super hard. Can they turn that car around? Can they get that into a car that is P2 car? At the moment, I don't think it's a P2 car. I think it's more like
Oof.
P3, P4 constructor worthy car. And that's why I say Max did a really good job. So there's a lot of questions still. Can Lando do what you say? Can he get in there, continue to take those poles, deal with when F1 and life throws at you challenging situations, be it flags, be it rain, be it safety cars, be it excessive tire wear, or, can he think on his feet? Can he do all that? Can the Red Bull turn their performance and get in there? And can Max just hang on? Yeah, I just think I stand by what I said. There's slightly, ever so slightly in Lando's favor. If he can dot the I's and cross the T's, I think the car's a weapon, mate. So yeah.
Blimey, Martin. And can we get techie for a second? Because I've talked about Lando and his inability almost to be positive. Like, he goes and nails a god tier quali lap, puts it on pole at the Italian Grand Prix, and then gets before the world's press and media. And all he's got to talk about is the mistake that he made through turn 1 and turn 2. Martin, what do you make as the resident expert on all of this, getting these drivers over the line as far as their psyche and mental fortitude and all those other intangible traits? What are the steps, the tangible steps that Lando needs to take going forward if indeed he's to kind of round off those very sharp mental fortitude edges? Like, what can Lando do, bruv? What do the steps look like?
Yeah. So I released a reel on this actually recently, and I said that if Lando went to the shops and it started raining, what would he say? And Lando in the start of 2024, he'd be like, "Oh, that's so unlucky. I got wet." And then I released like 25 different ways that you could avoid that. Taking a car, taking an umbrella, checking the radar, like doing all of these things to avoid getting wet. There's so many creative solutions that you could come up with. So what he needs to do is realize that the things that happen to him are not by chance. They're not unlucky. They're not due to any misfortune. They're not the team's fault. They're not Oscar's fault. Anything that happens to him, it's 110%, or most of the time, it's his fault. So if you look at Hungary as a classic example, everyone's like, "Oh, McLaren switched it, team orders, this, that." I'm like, what about the start? If Lando had just got an equal start to Oscar, he would have kept the lead he would have maintained the lead. He would have just won the race like normally and organically. Because he's messed the start, he's put himself behind Oscar. That's where all the dramas have started. So he needs to accept that, yeah, the things that happen to him, he has a part to play in them. If he can get on top of that, and similar to Baku, by the way, Baku qualifying, yes, you can say the team released him in a bad time. Yes, you can say there was a bit of unluck in there, but we're looking at a flag that was flashing that was white that went out and he went off at turn 16. So there's that too. So you can always clean things up as a driver. And unless you're 100% perfect, then you start to say, well, I was perfect, but the team let me down. Or I was perfect, but this was just super unlucky. Or you remember when he crashed in the rain in Spa, I think it was, in
Mate.
qualifying. He was leading in Russia and it started raining. And these things happen. And it's always like, oh, I was so close, but, you know, couldn't do it. So I think acceptance of, you know, it's on your plate, it's on your racket, it's your responsibility would be the first thing. Now, when you say like the negative self-talk and that, well, if you ask a lot of people, do you believe what you say and do you say what you believe? The answer will be yes. And so then the second follow-up question will be, then why are you saying what you're saying? You know, don't say those things because you're going to start to believe them. If you come down hard on yourself, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm so stupid. And I think Charles is guilty of this sometimes as well on the radio. You start to believe it subconsciously. That's the key part. You might not consciously be aware of that, but subconsciously you start to believe it. And if I was Lando, I would encourage him to turn this around 360 and walk in the room and say, no, I'm I'm in the world championship fight in 2024. I'm there because I deserve to be there. It comes back to the team orders piece as well, Cameron,
Oh,
because Lando keeps saying, I don't want any help from Oscar. I don't think that's right. I wouldn't expect that. I want to win it organically and on my terms. And I'm like, hang on a minute. You've earned the right to some help. You've put yourself in a championship fighting position for 18 races out of 24 for 3/4 of the championship. You've earned the right to some help if help is going to be available. Back yourself, trust yourself, walk in with your shoulders a little bit more like broader, like, no, I am the championship contender here and this is what I deserve because I've been consistent over that time. And Oscar's only showed up lately. So there's so many things there. I know I gave you a long answer, but I hope I answered it.
bro, I hope you can take a leaf out of your playbook, Martin. I say all of that. People say, "Oh, Cameron, you're too critical of Lando. He's a brilliant driver, racecraft, absolute, or pace in absolute terms, like he nails it." I think under the umbrella heading of having ourselves a competitive next 6 races, I'm desperate for Lando to fulfil his not insubstantial potential, Martin. But I just don't. If it's if it were somebody else, if it were a Charles as an example, I think, okay, have at it, Lando. Do you know what I mean? As you were, mate, you can roll forward your existing modus operandi and you might stand a chance. But just because it's Max, and we've seen how Max, you can't allow. If I'm a driver, I'm like, I can't let Max get into the lead because in the race or in the championship, because the second that he does, that makes my life so much more difficult because that dude is capable of nothing if not getting his elbows out, both in a race and the championship. So I think that 52 points, although it just sounds, it's still a big number, but I think because it's Max Verstappen in front of Lando Norris, I think that number in substance is bigger than it looks on paper. Do you know what I mean? Closing that down for Lando is going to be, even if he does the things that you mentioned, Martin, I think it's going to be, he needs fortuitous circumstances now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So we've spoken from Lando's point of view. Now, from Max's point of view, he will crash you if he has to crash you. Like he'll do an Ayrton Senna if he means wiping you out and retaining and maintaining that advantage. And we're on the final race and there's a 10-point gap and whatever, and it's 1 and 3 or 1 and 2. And Max will do that. Absolutely. He's got the advantage. And that's what we said before. Like Max is the opposite. He's like, no, hang on. I've got the advantage. I've earned the right to this championship. I've earned the right to the lead. I've earned the right to be aggressive here. You're going to have to back out because I've got the current, I've got the advantage here, as it were. So he's going to definitely use that to his favor if he has to. He's not afraid of going down as being, you're not the most glamorous world champion or whatever. If it's 4 instead of 3, I'll take it, you know? So that's Max's nature. So you're right. Lando's dealing with a feisty character who's in the lead. You know, he's got track position, as it were. So Lando needs to make that overtake on the scoreboard, and he's probably going to have to make that overtake at some point on the track as well. So that's when
Right.
it's going to get spicy. Now, I wanted to add one other thing is that McLaren and Lando probably started the season and they didn't expect that they'd be fighting for the championship. So it was all like, yeah, we're doing good and we're happy, team's good, we're all coherent. And all of a sudden the wind started coming in and it probably caught them by surprise just as much as it caught the fans and everyone else by surprise. So they're probably not also sure or brushed up on how to manage that situation. You look at Toto in 2016, even with his experience and his professionalism and how much success Mercedes had before that, he struggled to manage that situation. So you chuck McLaren in there, who have been a long time since this sort of success. They're very new at the game.
Very new, very green, very unprepared, some may say, Marty. Let's double click on something that you said just there about Max Verstappen. Because again, this is where the community does one of these, Martin. Massive divergence as far as Max Verstappen and his not just his driving skill, but his ability to be stubborn and get his elbows out. Do you think, like many Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton fans, that Max Verstappen oversteps the line as far as his racing card, Martin?
On Max's Instagram bio, I'm not sure if it still has it, but it says keep pushing the limits or
Oh,
something to that effect. I'm sure it said something like that, or it used to, or it still does. It might just say world champion now or whatever, but it always said keep pushing the limits. That's Max. He will push up against that limit. And if that means that sometimes he goes over into that area of gray or black or white, like he will do that. Like I said before, he's earned the right to that because he's currently in the lead. He's got a healthy lead. And if he has to defend that or protect that and defend his territory in his space, like it's in his nature to do that. So I don't think that makes him any worse or better or more or less of a driver or more or less of a human or a champion. That's just how he is. That's got him the success that he's got so far. And he's within his rights to do that. So let's see how it plays out. If it does come to an on-track battle, like we saw in Austria, I'm just sure Lando's not going to manage that situation well, and Max will outfox him in a one-on-one battle on track for sure. And if it means that both the cars have 3 wheels on it, Max is also happy with that.
100%, bruv. And why would he not be? Don't hate the player, right? Hate the game, some say, Martin. If they're allowed to, even Austria is a brilliant microcosm of this, right? If he's shifting around and doing dodginess in the braking zone on lap, I don't know, 45 or whatever it was, and the FI don't come down on him and say, listen, Max, stop doing that here and now, then on that 46, what else would you expect him to do? Now, listen, there is something to be said for the old art that is automotive pugilism, the Sterling Moss, like being brilliantly defensive and not touching. But I feel like we're in 2024 now, and this is the sim racing era. The likes of Max and Charles, to a certain extent, don't race like Sterling Moss and, I don't know, Giuseppe Farina did back in the day. These lot are Rene Arnoux and Gilles Villeneuve. Wheel banging central, are they not?
Yeah, I've got an interesting take on Austria, and I'm going to put it out here. I've spoken about it extensively on my socials and in the recent McLaren video, but I thought that Lando completed a successful move a few laps before. Can't remember the lap. I think it was lap 63, but I can't remember. He went up the inside. And when he went up the inside there, he forced Max off the track. And when I say he forced him off the track, he forced the error. Where Max went off the track, he kept his foot in it and he kept that place. And I don't think Lando allowed enough time for that situation to unfold. Was Max going to let him back past? Were the stewards going to give Max a penalty? I thought Lando stayed on the track and went up the inside and made an overtake. I thought there was a 95% chance that he was going to get that place handed back. So
Oof.
what did Lando do? He keeps attacking, which I believe was a mistake. I would have saved some battery, saved some tires, done whatever fuel management I had to do, and just wait until Max gives you that place back. So when he does, you can quickly get out of there and break that DRS. So what did he do? He continued to attack, which I thought was a mistake and a high risk play given he'd already done the successful move. And then when he continued to attack Cameron, instead of going up the inside, which is what worked, where does he go? He attacks around the outside. So that's what didn't work. So when he attacked around the outside, Max defends it and they have contact. And I was saying, well, why didn't you continue to go up the inside? That's what worked the lap before. You had no problems then. So he made that error, I thought, from Lando. Now, from Max's side, here's where it gets techie because he hasn't actually broken the rule. The rule is you can't move under braking. And what Max has done, he's braked diagonally across the track. And that's straight line braking. It just happens to be a diagonal straight line. So that's an interesting one as well. Is diagonal straight line braking moving under braking? When we talk about moving under braking, the idea is that the two cars are next to each other. You can't brake and then, change your line under braking. But Max hasn't done that. And if you watch his onboard, he's looking for Lando. He's like, where is Lando? And he was actually expecting an attack up the inside because that's where he got pinned a few laps before. So he was expecting one up the inside. So he turns towards the right to the inside. Lando's not there. Then he turns the other way. And that's when you get the diagonal braking. So I think Lando, like even Max thought he should have attacked up the inside.
Oh.
So yeah, there's some racecraft there that Lando needs to work on, but I'm just highlighting Austria and as an example. I think Max would have him covered. Now the question is, can the Red Bull ever get in front of the McLaren? When's that going to happen?
Mate, it depends. It depends on the upgrades that they're bringing to Kota, right? If they can bring a sexy mini DRS like McLaren have been utilising allegedly, and a sexy front wing that flexes like McLaren have been using, then mate, but that's got to be the plan. This is ground effect era, and understeer kills lap time. If you can leverage a cheeky flexi wing, particularly on the front, then surely, Martin, that will cure for some of their ills that Max has been complaining about. I'm on -5 brake bias and the thing still won't fudging turn in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a few problems there. So you mentioned the mini DRS, and obviously that's one component. But, in Singapore, it's not really a factor, and they got caned. Where we're going in Austin, Texas also has some slow speed, slow rotation down the back end of the circuit. There's a lot of lap time in those slow speed corners where downforce is not active, and mini DRS won't mean anything. It's all about the mechanical grip of the car. And like you say, the rotation there. So there's that to worry about too. So there's a few issues going on with that Red Bull. So I don't know, like I say, but we've had a break here. So can Red Bull turn that around? I'm sure they're working frantically to hang on to this championship because what I said earlier, I think they're going to struggle to collect P2s. Like that's a long shot. I'm expecting Max to struggle to get on the podium in Austin.
Wow. It's bonkers that you say that. And as a betting man, I was checking some odds, and indeed, Martin, he's third favourite. This is bonkers. Yeah. Like before, like race 1, 2, and 3, you would have got odds on greater than 50% chance that Max wins each and every single one of those races. Now, the percentages are more like 15%. It's like bonkers. Max Verstappen winning race. I just don't. Yeah, this championship is U-turn settings, massive 180, Martin. It's chaos.
So I'd be curious then, Cameron. Do you know what they have Max for the championship?
60% still, circa 60%. Okay. Lando's 40, which even then is chaos because at the start of the season he was like 78%. So when I say these percentage terms, all I'm saying is that if you run a simulation under the current set of circumstances, if you run it 100 times, they're saying Max wins 60%, 60 of those 100. It's chaos, bro. I never thought I'd see the day. Not this season, especially when he was like 78, 79% to win at the start. It's bonkers, Martin. I don't even understand it, man.
And what I'm saying and what I said earlier was I think he's less than half. I think he's at 45% because I think the odds are in Lando's favor because like I can see Lando winning and Max picking up a 6 or Lando winning and Max picking up a 5. Like that's what I see happening in the next couple of races.
Wow. Right, that's chaos. For the championship, I just still couldn't. I think Max Verstappen has to be the favourite. The Max Verstappen that we know and have seen, he's a known entity, Martin. You know what I mean? There's no variables. There's no He'll make a mistake from time to time, but it's infrequent as versus Lando. Lando, over the next 6 races, you're going to count the number of mistakes that you... I reckon it would be more than one hand. It would be like 6 or 7 cheeky unforced errors. Even, Martin, you've seen him last race, 30 seconds in hand, nearly yeeting it into the barrier. That's not championship behaviour, Martin. Not when Max Verstappen is breathing down your neck. Do you know what I mean? That's not... I don't think he's there just yet. I think Lando, like McLaren, I think this opportunity at both a drivers' and constructors' championship, you said it best earlier, has almost taken them by surprise. So I still think they're in, as far as the stage that they're at in terms of their growth, I still think they're more leaning towards seizing defeat from the jaws of victory. They're just not ready. And some people say that fortuitous circumstances, a la luck, is where opportunity meets preparedness. And that preparation is exactly what they don't have, Martin.
Yeah, 100% Cam, but we are getting into a 24 race season where 18 in? Like, surely they're going to work it out at some point. Surely McLaren are going to say, okay, we've got a good car. We're looking at this championship. Oscar, this is what you need to do. Like, Lando, go and take your poles. Like, surely at one point they're going to work it out. I want to touch on another point, like, which is that Max is a very emotional character. And I speak about this in one of my podcasts as well. And he asked me, the podcast host asked me, he said, so where's Max's weaknesses? And I said, look, on track, he's phenomenal. Qualifying, strategy, tire management, fuel saving, starts, attack, defense, restarts. The guy's excellent. Like, you're going to struggle to beat him on track. I said, but all that is built on, how did I explain it? I kind of said that Max is a very emotional person. And when he gets hot-headed, like we saw in Hungary, did you see that dive bomb on Lewis? And he couldn't just say, all right, I'm not in a good position here, I'll bring home the points. He had to dive Lewis. He came on the radio swearing at the team, no, you gave me this strategy and here's what, do you know what I mean? And the whole race just fell apart for Max and he was like, yeah, whatever. He almost was like, I just want to go home. Like, I don't care if I don't get points. Like, I just want to go home. So Max's beautiful driving and beautiful racecraft and all of that is built on potentially an emotional character. And if he's not getting the results that he wants, week in, race out, week in, week out, then I'm sure we're going to see Max fire up a little bit and be like, what the hell is going on here, guys? Like, where's this pace gone? Sort this out. Like, I'm waiting for that explosion as well. And that's going to cost points as well, Cam. So yes, there's some points that Lando and McLaren need to find, but there's also some points if Max explodes as well that could be coming.
It's a good shout. I can hear Max Verstappen fans screaming down the YouTube saying that surely since Austria and Hungary, okay, so these weren't necessarily races during which Max covered himself in glory. It wasn't Suzuka last year. Like, do you know what I mean? He wasn't at his best. But I've argued, Martin, previously that if the team do what they're supposed to do, then adversity isn't something that Max cowers away from. Take as an example Brazil 2021 when Lewis, 7-time champ, is breathing down his neck, or at Kota as an example on fresher tyres. Like, if it's just him in the car and somebody else and he doesn't feel like he's been sabotaged or like the team haven't dropped the ball or there hasn't been some dodgy strategy or the handling dynamic of the car isn't screwed him over, if he's got the car underneath him and the circumstances are adverse, I think he backs himself. I remember him in 2021 at Brazil, and again, techie driving there, super aggressive overcrowd, lap 43 or whatever it was. But I remember hearing Max over the radio that time thinking, who is this chap, Martin? What's running through his veins? Like, if that were me, I would be bricking it. Lewis in a faster car, having overtaken the field twice as near as makes no difference, charging at me, gapping me to the tune of like 3 or 4 tenths each and every single lap. And you hear him over the radio and he's almost like Terminator settings, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, it's ridiculous, Martin. So I take your point and I think you're right. But I think Max will get emotional under very specific circumstance when he feels like the team haven't done their job, in the words of Bill Belichick. I think if it's just him and he has the car and somebody's charging at him, if it's just if it's a mano a mano, if it's just like a duel, I think he's like almost eerily got like Oscar Piastri levels of stoicism. Almost just when he feels like the team haven't done what they're supposed to do, or they've allowed somebody to under these things outside of his circumstance. I think that's when Max just loses his mind. So again, it's the onus is on Red Bull to do their job right, give him what he needs, and otherwise he'll defend or vacate Martin pastures anew.
Yeah, 100%. I think what you're alluding to there is Max's confidence. Max has confidence in spades. He came into Formula One at like 17. He won his first race in a Red Bull. He's got confidence in spades. He will back himself, to your words, absolutely. Like where we say Lando is down on himself and might not think that he's the best or deserve help from Oscar, Max is a total opposite. He has confidence in spades,
Yep.
and that's a strength. But I just want to bring it back to your point, to the point I raised, sorry, about Max's emotions. Do you remember in Baku? I can't remember the year, but George Russell got up the inside of Max into turn two,
Last
and he
year.
took a bite out. Was it last year? He took a bite out of his side pod, and Max in the Parc Ferme was very emotional. He was like, "Look at this! What the hell? Like next time, expect the same," you know. And there was some that's when I first said Max is a very emotional character, and that's his weakness is he is emotional. And it was something like that which triggered him and fired him up, and he thought that that was not fair in that case, Cameron. So it had nothing to do with the team carrying their weight or anything. The car was fine, everything was fine. It was George took a little bite out of Max, and Max saw that as disrespect. Max was like, don't touch me," and he wanted to get him back. And you know, if the car allowed him to, he would have had a bite back at George. So he's definitely got that personality in him. So I just want to see what happens in the next couple of races. If the team don't carry their weight or something happens, Max will flip. He will absolutely flip. And is that going to cost points?
Mate, flip and or leave the team for pastures anew. The boys or girls from Brackley and Brixworth, or Lawrence Stroll's Aston Martin potentially. It's going to get techie, Martin. The next 6 races are going to be interesting. But you know what, mate? I wanted to pitch you on this because it feels like F1, as far as its decisions to appoint new drivers, it's done a bit of a 180. I've contended that 24 months ago it was all about a steady pair of hands. Please see as Exhibit A Kevin Magnussen. You kind of want to put somebody in the car who's got F1 experience. Why? Because that's the first order priority. Now, however, as at October 2024, by virtue of Colapinto's surprise performance, he's pushing Alex Albon, who everybody rates really well, pushing him, like beating him in qualifying. Could have been 2 of 3, notwithstanding a cheeky DRS reliability issue. Because of this now, Martin, you hear the likes of Christian Horner now talking about we need to invest in the youth, and there's all these hot prospects talking about George Russell, Colapinto, Bearmann, Antonelli. Mate, are these young hot prospects? I'm talking specifically to Bearmann will be on the grid next year, Antonelli too, Doohan will be on there, Colapinto too potentially, Lawson almost definitely. Has F1 gone too far the other way as far as investing in rookies? Should we put some more respect on a Kevin Magnussen's name by virtue of his experience? Or do you think the likes of Franco Colapinto can get into F1 now and next year and do a job?
It's a tricky question, Cam. In terms of lap time, like the youth have always had it. But then a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, the drivers these days, they're coming in so well prepared and they're so ready to go." I'm like, hang on a minute. In the last 2 weeks, we had all 3 of them stack it in the wall in practice. We had
Oof.
Kimi Antonelli last 2 laps in Monza. We had Bearmann crash in FP3, I believe, on the Saturday in Baku. And we had Colapinto crash in FP1 in Baku. All 3 rookies, like carless, pretty much. So there's 2, as I answered before in one of your questions, there's always lap time. That's one topic. And then there's conversion. And that's a totally another topic. So yes, they're bringing home points, but like to see Antonelli, Bearmann, and Colapinto in the wall, obviously they're not coming in with any coaches or mentors to say, here's our goals and objectives for this session. Here's what we want to do. It's Baku, FP1, it's dusty. Just go out, have a look around, come back in. Well, Kimi Antonelli, the track has just been resurfaced. Just go out, have a look around, come back in. Like we've got an hour here. Don't stick it in the wall. So they're obviously not coming in with coaches and mentors. There's heaps of media around them, heaps of attention. There's pressure, and they're succumbing to that pressure. You have to look at the drivers that they're replacing as well. Like what Colapinto replaced Sargent.
Mm,
So I would
that's
do the same.
yeah.
Antonelli came in because obviously Hamilton vacated the seat and they're keeping Carlos. So there's retainment of talent there. With regards to Kevin Magnussen, and well, you've got two experienced drivers there. So you've got Kevin and you've got Nico. Okay, you can bring in a rookie. Arguably, that's what they're doing with Antonelli as well. They're keeping George and bringing another one. I think it's just maybe a natural progression that it's just all happened at this time. Obviously, with Red Bull, they don't have any like they've got no one, they've got Sergio who's not performing well, Daniel who's not performing well, Yuki who they're not prepared to put in the car. They have to be looking elsewhere. They
Mate.
have to be looking at like the youth and be saying, well, where are these guys and who can we get? But I think that's more out of desperation than it would like if they had a Carlos or a Hulkenberg, or if they had someone there, they'd promote. Or if Daniel was doing well, they'd promote. Obviously, Daniel struggled. I don't know. I like the youth. I don't believe they're coming in better prepared per se. They're doing more work. Like they're doing a lot more simulator work. But as far as I know, they're not working technically with coaches and actually being able to problem solve and dig themselves out of situations. And that's where the experience is going to make a difference. If you put Max and Bearmann in a situation where the car is terrible, Max will be like, yep, change, change, change. Try this, try this, try this. Bang, bang, bang. All right, bang, we're on. We're back. Whereas Oliver will be like, what do I do? What do I even have an issue? Like identification of the issue is the first thing, solution of the issue is the second thing. So yeah, they're gonna be jumping and they're gonna go like rabbits. I get it. Can they
Ah,
problem solve and navigate themselves out of difficult situations? That remains to be seen.
it's techie this. I do want to get on the Franco Colapinto bandwagon already. Do you know what I mean? Argentinian, please see Carlos Reutemann and Fangio back in the day. You'll have a ton of sponsors looking to throw money at him. And moreover, Martin, his performances haven't been at all bad. If indeed F1 maths is a thing that you can invest in, Alex Albon, everybody thinks he's half decent, notwithstanding the fact that he got roundly beaten by Liam Lawson in DTM in 2021. That's another conversation for another day. But Red Bull have data on him and they rate him fairly highly. So if Colapinto comes in and in his first 3 races in F1 can push Alex Albon, who everybody rates really highly, fairly close, out-qualify him nearly in 2 of 3. It's like, well, this dude's got something go on. By the way, Martin, lest we forget that this dude's in, where is he in FT? 6th behind bloody Kimi Antonelli. So like, and everybody rates Kimi Antonelli as the next Ayrton Senna. So it's like, hang on. Give Colapinto a drive, surely, and potentially as at 2025. He won't be in F1. Too chaotic, Martin. I don't know what to make.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, particularly when you say everyone rates Alex highly and everyone rates Kimi. Who are these everyone's? Like, what, Alex Albon, the one we're talking about that was put in a sink or swim situation with Max and then was dropped and then now had to rebuild himself. And, like, okay, obviously Franco's done an amazing job. We're not going to take that away from him, but let's see. We need more time. Like, I completely prefer to stay totally neutral on this and say, let's see. Let's see when they're truly tested. We were waiting for this with Oscar Piastri, and everyone said, "Oh, he's so stoic, he's so calm, he's so good under pressure." I said, "Let's see," because we need to wait and see. And I think Baku was our case in point. Charles applied a huge amount of pressure, attacking up the inside, around the outside, down the back straight, down the main straight, like trying to change lines. When Oscar got a bad exit out of the corner that leads onto the straight turn 16, he applied a lot of pressure. We saw Oscar finally in the race lead under pressure, and he performed. And now we can just draw a line under that and say, yes, Oscar has what it takes to perform under pressure. But that took 2 years to see that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see now, like with Colapinto and Antonelli and Bearmann, let's see when they're truly tested, the colors are going to show underneath eventually. So yes, I'm all for giving them a chance, 100%. Give the guys a chance. Everyone deserves a chance. Some people deserve second chances. Let's give them a chance. Let's see where they're at. And but yeah, when you say everyone rates Alex highly, like I'm not sure.
You're not buying what Alex Albon is selling. I think they do rate him. I think he's a good driver, and again, he's got a cheeky error in his locker, of course, of the unforced variety. But I think Alex Albon, I think he's okay, so he's not Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton levels, but he's half decent. And again, I think by virtue of those F1 maths, I think you've got to I think Colapinto's got to be given a little bit more credit than probably I've given him. Okay, so to your point, Martin, do we need to see him in longer form? Because of course in F1, one swallow does not a summer maketh. Do you know what I mean? Got to see him over 24 races, not 3. It's a very different challenge to do. Excellence, some say, is what you do every day, not at your best moment. So it's a bit techie in that sense, but I mean, it'd be a travesty of justice if 2025 these guys are firing up their engines and Colapinto isn't there, but a Checo Perez is, like what a Lance Stroll is. Bloody Nora, Martin. I mean, is meritocracy still a thing in F1 or now? Like, what are we doing here, Lance Stroll? Behave yourself.
Yeah, look, 100% Cam. On that side of the fence, I definitely agree with you. It's always funny when they say we've got the best 20 drivers in the world on the grid. I'm like, hang on a minute, a few of them,
No.
a few of them got there through other means. But Lance is not bad in the wet sometimes. So they do show their talents in different ways as well, I guess. But yeah, I'm like I said before, I'm all for giving them a chance. Give them a chance, but let's not rate them too highly one way or another too early. Let's not put excessive pressure on these kids. Like you saw what happened with Antonelli. Like that was just the result of too much media, too much pressure, too much expectation. If I was there, I would have said, Kimmy, here's the expectation. Go out and do 10 laps and bring the car back. That's all you need to do. Like, so there's that to think about as well. So give them a chance, bring them in with a coach and mentor. I think that's the key point that's missing in all of this, so that then you can have someone experienced, mature, professional in with someone who's got the speed, who's young, and, work as a team and help each other and say, you've got the speed, but here's what you don't have. Here's how you bring the tires in. Here's how you approach street circuits. Here's how you're going to get good starts and defend your position. Here's how you're going to use the diff. Here's how you're going to change your engine braking for this corner because it's decreasing radius. Here's how you're going to use the brake migration. Like bring a mind in with them. And okay, so that's how I'm going to get more grip. And then I'm 100% sure everything would be a lot more calm, a lot more managed, a lot better. But we bring them in and we wind them up and we let them run. And then they end up in the wall and we're like, oh, isn't that cool? Like, so, we're silly sometimes, aren't we?
Yeah, the F1 community can be a bit daft from time to time. So, Martin, clarify one thing for me, mate. As far as the next one, we always say this is another thing that the community likes to do. A tree up which we like to bark. Who's the next one? Who is of the current crop from what you've seen? And again, it's limited, and this is always a bit finger in the air time, right? But of Bearmann, Antonelli, Colapinto, Jack Doohan, who else is there? I always forget there's others, isn't there? Bartoletto too, you got to put in there. Of the current, the next crop, the next generation, if you had to save a dying puppy, which one of those looks like the next Lewis Hamilton or the next Maximilian Verstappen?
I'm going to go with Antonelli. Just, what's funny about his crash in Parabolica? Technically speaking, he didn't actually do much wrong. He didn't do much wrong at all. The way he got that car into that corner was spectacular. Now, look, there's two sides to this, right? A totally immature, unprofessional 2 laps because he just went as quick as he could and put it in the wall. So that's one side. The second side is observing the technique in those 2 laps. The way he got that car into the Parabolica was beautiful. The fact that it swapped ends caught everyone by surprise. I've had a look at it a few times and tried to work out what's actually happened here. I think in the middle of that corner, because he's not familiar with the gears and what gear to put the car in, he's clicked one too many downshifts. And if you hear the onboard, you'll be like, yeah, I get it. He's gone one too many downshifts, and engine braking acts at the rear, don't forget. So you can't just turn in and smash the downshifts. You're going to lock the rear eventually. And when you lock the rear, it's exactly what happens. You get rear rotation. You're going to spin in the way he did. So I think in terms of the brake, the steering and the throttle, the way he lined up that parabolic, I think it was everything looked like sublime, like it was
Wow.
beautiful. But he was just clicking the downshifts too quickly and too aggressively. That also added to the rear braking, added to the rear locking, and then he went round. So I'd go with Antonelli just
Oof.
based on what I've seen on those two laps. Like he's mega quick. Like and also that he wasn't afraid. He's like, if I put it in the wall, I put it in the wall, but I am going to be quick. That's how it's going to be. So he kind of comes in with an uncompromising nature and speed. And what Toto said has some merit as well. Like we'd rather try and slow him down and speed him up. Might be an easier job. So I'd go with Antonelli. But again, like, let's see.
That is a characteristic that a common denominator amongst some of the greats. Some people say, not least of whom is Michael Schumacher, who once upon a time binned Piquet's car and then jumped straight in the car, like the T car or whatever they call it, and went out and set purple sectors all the way through. So it's this unerring confidence, the unwavering confidence even that some of the great ones have. I'm hoping that Andrea Kimi Antonelli could be the next one. He's got the look, he's got the smile, he looks a little bit like Senna. It would be a perfect story for F1, and they desperately want for it to come true, don't they, mate? That's why they're getting round him, and they had the gazillion press conferences at the Italian Grand Prix. They're tinkering with the super license rules to try and get him in the back door. They're pushing this narrative out desperately, and Toto Wolff is too. Maybe he could be the next one. Currently sat 5th in the championships in F2, but again, is that good enough? I don't know. Who knows? It's hard to read the F2 F1 tea leaves, isn't it, Martin? But listen, champ, I enjoy these conversations. So you've been a legend, man. Super in depth, super insightful as always. Listen, mate, where can people catch you? It's Lower Lap Time on the YouTubes, is it not? And so too, the same handle on X, formerly known as Twitter. Correct me if I've misspoke there, Martin.
Yeah, correct. Thanks for having me, Cam. Good chat as always. Yes, absolutely. Lower Lap Time is where you can find me on all the socials.
Lower Lap Time, all one word, for some of the best insight and analysis as far as all things driver style is concerned. Martin, you've been an absolute legend. I've been your boy Cameron CC. As always, between now and next time. Oh, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, share with a friend. As always, if you're listening on a podcasting platform, do me a favour, 5 stars and a cheeky follow. Between now and next time, as always, remember to look but never stare.